It was during a routine company meeting that it happened. Our new colleague, a stunning woman recently returned from abroad accidentally, mirrored her phone screen onto the main projector. The professional presentation slides vanished, replaced by her personal WeChat interface. Suddenly, a voice message played aloud, booming through the room. "Wait for me. I'll take you to the seaside this weekend. I'll come over tonight." In that moment of utter public mortification, a ripple of knowing, slightly suggestive chuckles spread through the conference room. But I couldn't laugh. My blood ran cold. The voice on the recording sounded exactly like my husband's. My head snapped up. I saw my colleague, her cheeks flushed crimson, stammering apologies to the room as she fumbled to disconnect her phone. She was undeniably beautiful, her voice soft and captivating even in her embarrassment. Her earlier self-introduction echoed in my mind. "Hello everyone, my name is Willow Sue." A sudden sickening realization dawned on me. My husband, Lysander, had a childhood sweetheart he'd never quite forgotten. Her name was Willow. A voice that sounded alike could be a coincidence. But adding the name Willow to the equation? A chilling premonition settled deep in my gut. Later that evening, as I was wrapping up at the office, I received a message from Lysander. He said he had to work late and wouldn't be home for dinner. Even with the knot of dread already tightening in my chest, seeing the actual message was a physical blow. I barely registered leaving the office, walking through the familiar streets. The next thing I knew, I was standing outside the unit building where Willow lived. My intuition screamed at me, a cold certainty that something terrible was unfolding, but stubbornness rooted me to the spot. If Lysander was betraying me, I had to see it with my own eyes. The night air was sharp, biting. My thin office dress offered no protection against the chill. I stood on the cold pavement, my eyes fixed on every approaching car. Finally I saw it. The familiar license plate. I stood frozen, unable to move, unable to even hide. Lysander's car pulled up directly in front of me. Through the passenger window I saw a flicker of something. Shock? Discomfort? Cross his usually composed features. In that fleeting second, everything became horribly, painfully clear. Lysander got out of the car, his handsome, elegant face creased with a slight frown. "Alara," he asked softly, his voice laced with surprise. "What are you doing here?" I straightened my back, forcing myself to stand tall. I looked him directly in the eye. "Lysander, is this what you meant by working late?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he quickly shrugged off his tailored suit jacket and draped it around my shoulders. The fine wool felt heavy, suffocating. "Alara, you look terribly pale. I'll take you home now." There was an edge of urgency in his voice, a rare crack in his usual calm demeanor. For the collected, self-possessed Lysander to sound flustered, I must have looked like a ghost. I stood rooted, waiting for an answer that wasn't coming. After a long silence, he lowered his head and sighed. "Alara, don't make a scene." He placed a firm hand on my shoulder, guiding me towards the passenger door, his touch surprisingly forceful as he helped me into the seat. The car pulled away from the curb, heading in the direction of our apartment. "Alara, stop making a scene." The phrase echoed in my mind over and over. Again with those words, I stared blankly out the window as the city lights blurred past, thinking back to the day 3 years ago, when I proposed to Lysander. It was near graduation. Some wealthy, arrogant guy was obsessed with the campus beauty queen, and showed up to publicly declare his affections. The beauty queen, wanting to escape the scene, casually grabbed Lysander, who was just passing by, and declared he was the one she liked. The arrogant guy wasn't just physically intimidating. His family had serious connections. If he decided to make trouble, Lysander's future in the city would likely be over. The crowd of onlookers, unaware of the underlying tension, egged on the beauty queen and Lysander, chanting for them to get together. The arrogant guy was clearly about to lose his temper. That's when I stepped forward, standing between him and Lysander, and announced to everyone that Lysander was my boyfriend. The guy didn't believe me, still spoiling for a fight with Lysander. So on impulse, I grabbed a bunch of flowers from a nearby planter, knelt down on one knee right there in front of everyone, and proposed to Lysander. I knew it was incredibly forward, utterly lacking in restraint for a young woman, but I had my reasons. I had been secretly in love with Lysander for years. He knew about my crush, but his attitude towards me had always been politely neutral, neither accepting, rejecting, nor offering any hint of intimacy. Seeing my sudden, public proposal, Lysander's expression was unreadable. He looked down at me, his voice low and serious. "Alara, stop making a scene." I quickly and quietly explained the arrogant guy's background and influence. Lysander's usually cool and proud demeanor shifted. I knew his ambition. He came from a modest background and desperately wanted to succeed. In that moment, accepting my proposal, linking himself to a family with significant resources, was the most strategically advantageous choice. I looked up at him, my face tilted, my heart pounding with a desperate make-or-break courage. If he was willing to use me, I was willing to be his stepping stone. Under the increasingly menacing glare of the arrogant guy, Lysander reached out and took the flowers. After that, I openly attached myself to him. It wasn't long before we got our marriage certificate. To reassure my parents, he even signed a prenuptial agreement. After the wedding, Lysander joined my father's prestigious law firm. The story of the wealthy socialite chasing and winning the aloof campus heartthrob was still whispered about at our alma mater. In the 3 years since, he had been the perfect husband in public. Everyone who knew us or saw us together said we were the model couple. Sometimes the way he looked at me, the warmth in his eyes, was so convincing that I almost believed he had, through sheer proximity, fallen in love with me. But that illusion was fragile. Took only one name, and the carefully constructed facade of a perfect marriage crumbled. The car's heating kept out the physical cold, but I felt as if I were standing in a snowstorm, freezing from the inside out. Something inside me had shattered, leaving a dull, throbbing ache. I turned away from the window, offering a brittle, desolate smile. I know Willow is back. The car screeched to a halt, the sudden stop throwing me forward. My head hit the dashboard ornament, a sharp pain that brought tears to my eyes. Shaken, I looked at Lysander. His hands were clenched tightly on the steering wheel, veins prominent on his skin. He turned his face away, unable to look at me. "Don't overthink this, Alara. There's nothing between Willow and me. I would never break our agreement, I would never cheat." Every word he spoke felt like a suffocating weight. Yes, they hadn't had a chance to do anything yet. But the tender tone in that voice message, the urgent rush to be near her, to go to her building late at night, these were expressions of yearning and connection that the cool, collected Lysander had never shown me. I lowered my gaze, my voice flat. "Right. I know there's nothing going on." Lysander seemed to relax slightly. The car started again, and we were home quickly. I looked at the familiar apartment, so stylish and expensive, yet utterly devoid of the warmth of a home. There was no love, no shared life, no true intimacy. Lysander claimed he had work to do and went directly to his study. I went to the bathroom. I was so cold I needed the warmth of a hot bath. I lay in the water, letting the heat seep into my aching body. I knew that if I just stayed silent, if I pretended I hadn't seen anything, Lysander would continue to play the part of the perfect husband. But was that what I wanted? Was that how I wanted to live? Lost in thought, I emerged from the bathroom just as I heard Lysander on the phone. His words froze me in place. "Yes, I couldn't make it tonight. Get some rest. If Alara gives you any trouble at work next week, just tell me." In that instant, I felt like the cliché, jealous, unpleasant character in a bad drama. I stumbled back, covering my mouth to stifle a choked sound. What kind of person did he think I was? For him to assume I would retaliate against Willow? 3 years of marriage and he had no understanding, no trust in me at all. I slowly turned to leave, accidentally bumping a decorative vase on a nearby console. The slight sound gave me away. Lysander opened his study door, his brow furrowed, his voice sharp with accusation. "Alara, were you just eavesdropping on my call?" I shook my head, looking him directly in the eye, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I'm not that petty, Lysander." I started packing a small suitcase. I needed to leave this apartment, leave Lysander for a while. We needed space, time to confront whatever this was. Lysander watched me, seeming about to speak several times, but in the end, he just nodded curtly, his face impassive, allowing me to leave. As I pulled my suitcase through the front door, I couldn't resist one last glance back. I knew what I was hoping for. In a hidden corner of my heart, I desperately wished he would call out, ask me to stay. We had argued before, and I was always the one who gave in, the one who apologized. But the proud, aloof Lysander would never humble himself to beg. And perhaps more painfully, what was I to him that he would even want to? I returned to the townhome where my family used to live. After we married, Lysander started working at my father's law firm. He was brilliant, and within a year my parents had entrusted the firm to him and confidently moved abroad, leaving me here alone. The familiar surroundings offered a small measure of comfort, but the empty villa felt vast and lonely. I curled up on the sofa, replaying the moments of my 3-year marriage to Lysander. In front of others, he was always the perfect husband, attentive, gentle, seemingly devoted. But in private, he was distant, formal, a wall always between us. I had told myself it was just his naturally cool personality. But Willow's return had shown me the truth. He wasn't aloof. He was just selectively affectionate. His warmth and intimacy were simply not for me. I spent the entire night thinking, crying, until exhaustion finally claimed me. The next morning, I woke to the sight of a tall, handsome young man peering over my garden wall. He grinned and waved energetically. "Sister Alara, you're back." Looking at his bright, cheerful face, my memories shifted, and his features began to align with a younger version of himself. Hesitantly I asked, "Are you Reese?" His eyes lit up. "You remember me. I'm Reese-Ian. You saved me years ago." I finally placed him. Reese had been our neighbor, 5 years younger than me. 5 years ago, I had pulled him from the swimming pool after he nearly drowned. I couldn't believe how tall and strapping he had grown. "I even invited your family to my wedding 3 years ago," I said a little sadly. "But you were already studying abroad and couldn't make it." Reese just smiled, not responding directly. He frowned slightly, pointing to my forehead. "Sister Alara, your eyes are so red. And what happened to your forehead?" I pulled out my phone camera to look. My smile froze. My eyes were swollen and red from crying, and my forehead sported a large, angry bruise. It must have been from hitting the dashboard last night. It was mortifying. I, Alara, who always maintained a composed appearance, was a wreck. A soft chuckle came from Reese. "No need for a perfect image, Sister Alara. You're still beautiful, even with a messy face." What a smooth-talking kid, I thought, glaring at him. "If you don't get off my wall, I'm calling the police." Reese ignored my threat completely. He vaulted over the wall, landed gracefully, then hopped through the open window beside the sofa. He walked directly to me. "Where's the first aid kit? Let me put some ointment on that." I was taken aback. Something felt off, strangely comfortable. But the warmth of his hand as he took mine was undeniable. How long had it been since a genuinely warm hand had held mine? Lysander would rarely hold my hand unless we were in public. Most of the time I walked behind him, a silent shadow watching his back. "Sister Alara, your hands are freezing. Let me warm them up." Reese held my hands between his, rubbing gently, his manner completely natural, as if my discomfort was all in my head. I had to admit, Reese's unexpected presence and cheerful demeanor had dispelled some of the sadness weighing on me. But maybe I was imagining it, but I felt a strange, intense emotion simmering beneath his easy smile whenever he looked at me. What happened next confirmed it. Reese spent the weekend with me. We played video games during the day. In the evenings, even after returning to his family's place next door, he would video chat with me. "You're so clingy," I teased him one night. "Are you worried I'll do something foolish?" "Don't worry, I won't." Reese just smiled through the screen. "I just want to make Sister Alara happy always." Monday morning arrived. As a working adult, I had to go back to the office. Reese messaged me specifically to tell me he had bought me breakfast to take on the way. When I stepped out the front door, I found both Reese and Lysander standing like sentinels. Lysander's face was dark, his eyes fixed accusingly on Reese, who held a bag of breakfast. Reese, in turn, was watching Lysander with a strangely knowing, almost challenging expression. A silent current of tension crackled between them. Lysander turned to me, his brow furrowed, his voice laced with an emotion I couldn't quite place. "Annoyance? Possessiveness? I came to take you to work." Who is this?" I answered dismissively. "Delivery guy." I took the breakfast from Reese. "Got the delivery. Thanks." At my words, Lysander's polished facade returned. He gave Reese a slight, cool nod. "Thank you for your trouble." Reese's confident expression crumbled instantly. He looked like a puppy who'd been kicked, his face falling into a pitiful hangdog. Look, I felt a pang of guilt, a surge of discomfort. Not daring to look at Reese again, I quickly pulled Lysander towards his car. It wasn't that I was being cruel, but I was reevaluating my relationship with Lysander. If we were going to separate, I didn't want Reese to become a target for Lysander's potential anger or retaliation. In the past I had always deferred to Lysander, wanting only to please him. But now I had to be cautious. Love can make a woman humble, even blind. But when that love withers, a woman can become the most clear-sighted, pragmatic person. Once inside the car, Lysander started the engine. Your phone was off. You didn't reply to my messages. So I came myself. I kept my gaze fixed forward, saying nothing. Was this an explanation? Was Lysander actually trying to explain himself to me? A wave of complex emotions washed over me. It felt like something I had yearned for years. Yet now that it was happening, it brought no joy, only confusion. The complicated feeling didn't last. As we pulled up to the office building, Lysander spoke again. Willow is a very simple girl. We grew up together. Please look out for her at the company. Don't make things difficult for her. It hit me then. Taking me to work? Explaining himself? It was all a pretext. Everything he did was for Willow. I didn't respond. I just opened the car door and got out. Lysander called my name from behind me, but I didn't turn back. Once around the corner, out of his sight, I leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. Just turning away from him had taken every ounce of my strength. A weak, weary smile spread across my face. I should have known. Lysander wasn't the kind of man to humble himself for me. But for Willow, he had. I should have known all along. There was work to be done. I pulled myself together and plunged into my tasks, burying myself in documents. During lunch break, passing the pantry, I saw Willow. She was radiant, animated, chatting with colleagues. She looked nothing like the vulnerable, simple girl Lysander had described. It was almost amusing how Lysander, despite his intelligence, could still be so blind, seeing innocence where there was something else. It was touching in a twisted way how he went to such lengths to protect her, to smooth things over. But they both underestimated me. I was Lyra, a woman of principle. I wouldn't stoop to petty workplace sabotage. 3 years. We lived together, slept in the same bed, yet remained strangers. Our hearts were miles apart. They say the closest stranger is a spouse. Our marriage, sharing a bed but living in different worlds, was the epitome of that. After that, I threw myself into work completely, often staying at the office late, sometimes even overnight. My personal life, my emotional turmoil faded into the background. Finally, the demanding project ended. I was exhausted, wanting nothing more than to go home and sleep for a week. Colleagues suggested a celebratory dinner. Seeing their happy faces, I couldn't say no. So I went. I hadn't expected Willow to be there. Seeing her confidently navigating the group, charming everyone, I felt a strange amusement mixed with unease. Even a man like Lysander wasn't immune to the classic straight man blindness, seeing simplicity in someone who was clearly anything but. I switched on my phone, which had been off for days. A flood of missed calls and messages appeared, many from Reese. Thinking of his worried expression that morning outside my house, my heart softened slightly. I sent him a quick text. Just then, Willow excused herself to take a call. A few minutes later, as a waiter served dishes, he stumbled slightly, spilling some sauce on my dress. He apologized profusely. I waved it off, saying it was fine, and headed towards the restroom to clean up. As I walked down the corridor, I heard voices from a dimly lit alcove nearby. Willow's voice. Drawn by an instinct I couldn't explain, I stopped. Slowly, quietly, I crept closer. In the shadows, I saw Willow standing opposite a tall man. Lysander. That silhouette was so familiar, so deeply etched in my mind, I could never mistake it. My hands clenched, my nails digging into my palms. The pain was a grounding anchor. The only way I could bear to stay and listen. Willow's voice was soft, trembling slightly, portraying an image of delicate distress. It's all my fault. I made Sister Ilara misunderstand you. She's in there now. Don't stop me this time. I have to explain to her. I scoffed internally, still using these transparent tactics. Lysander was silent for a moment. Then his voice, slightly hoarse, reached me. Don't. She's got that spoiled rich girl temper. You'll just get hurt dealing with her. Spoiled rich girl temper. Yes, I was a rich girl. But in front of Lysander, I had spent years suppressing every hint of self-importance, terrified of bruising his pride, of making him unhappy. I had been so careful, so mindful all this time, and it was all for nothing. Hearing the man I had loved for so long describe me this way, standing in the summer heat, I felt a chill colder than any winter. I was frozen through and through. But I hadn't heard the cruelest words yet. Willow's tone shifted, becoming concerned. What will you do if you don't make up? If Mr. Davison finds out? You won't get that partner position at the firm, will you? A beat of silence. Lysander's voice, low and heavy. Mr. Davison knows. He knows that the marriage between me and Alara, it was just a contract. A mutual exchange of benefits. Mutual exchange of benefits. For words. They hit me like a physical blow, shattering my frozen heart into a million pieces. It was just an exchange of benefits, I thought. Back to the day I proposed, the bright sunlight, my desperate hope. I thought I was saving a hero. My classmates thought it was a fairy tale romance. We were all wrong. Lysander's careful performance as the perfect husband, the facade he showed the world, had blinded me. It made me forget that his internal scale had never tipped even slightly towards me. If I were still the naive girl who just blindly loved him, perhaps I could have clung to the scraps of that performance, deluding myself. But 3 years had passed. I was no longer content to be a stepping stone. When I opened my eyes, my decision was made. I stepped out of the shadows, my gaze steady, fixed on the face I had loved for so many years. My voice was quiet, calm. Lysander, let's get a divorce. Willow blinked, wide-eyed, her act momentarily forgotten. Lysander's face paled, his composure completely gone. This wasn't just the awkwardness of being caught. It was the shock of something utterly unexpected happening. He had thought he knew me, thought my devotion was absolute, that I would never be the one to walk away. He looked at me, his face a mask of disbelief and anger. Alara, this is the conclusion you came to after all that thinking? I nodded slowly, observing the man I had loved. Lysander was even more handsome than he had been years ago. A refined elegance honed by time. But looking at him, now my heart no longer pounded with frantic energy. It was as if the little deer inside me had finally died, trapped within the walls of this 3-year marriage. I looked up at him, my gaze calm, devoid of any trace of my former turbulent emotions. There was only a strange, quiet peace. My lawyer will be in touch. There was nothing more to say. I turned to leave, but caught a slight movement from Lysander's foot, a step towards me. Before I could react, I heard a small cry from behind me. Mr. Davison. Willow's voice was high-pitched, seemingly distressed. Is it because of me that you're having a misunderstanding? You don't have to do this. She reached out as if to grab my arm. I instinctively stepped aside. She stumbled and fell to the floor with a cry of pain. I stood frozen, utterly bewildered. This was unbelievably theatrical. Surely Lysander could see through this? But theatrical it might be, it was effective. Lysander's movement towards me stopped. He turned fully towards Willow, helping her up. Are you hurt? I closed my eyes for a moment, then offered a faint smile. True love. This was true love. True love meant rushing to her side, playing along with her performance, no matter how obvious it was. Suddenly, a wave of overwhelming fatigue washed over me. I had turned too quickly, the world spun. My legs felt weak, and I reached out instinctively to steady myself. Then I heard 2 distinct voices. From behind me, Lysander's voice, sharp and accusatory. Alara, if you're going to act, at least make it believable. Beside me, a hand reached out and steadied me. Sister Alara, be careful. I looked up into Reese's eyes. The light in the hallway was dim, but his eyes sparkled with a faint, beautiful light. He breathed out slowly. Glad I wasn't too late. Whether it was my imagination or not, Lysander's face seemed to darken even further at Reese's appearance and words. Reese held up a small paper bag towards Lysander, a playful challenge in his eyes. It was a rushed delivery. Sister Alara needed hangover medicine. I couldn't help but let out a choked sound of amusement. Reese immediately pulled me away. I heard Lysander's footsteps following, but then Willow cried out softly behind him, and his steps stopped. Lysander didn't follow. A strange sense of relief washed over me, as if a heavy weight had been lifted. More surprisingly, I found I didn't want to pull my hand away from Reese's. He led me out of the building and towards a small park nearby. He produced 2 small bottles from the bag. They were beers, my favorite brand. How did you know I liked this? I was genuinely surprised. I did enjoy beer, but I hadn't drunk it in years because Lysander was allergic to alcohol. Reese's handsome face was alight with a cheerful smile. I know everything about Sister Ilara. I just smiled back, not saying anything else. This kid was certainly smooth. I took a bottle, and Reese silently clinked his bottle against mine. As I slowly drank the beer, a sense of disorientation settled in. I was really getting a divorce. The truth Lysander had revealed tonight had finally killed any lingering hope I had for him. But for so long, pursuing him had been my sole purpose. Now that the goal was gone, where did I go from here? Ilara. A low voice beside me spoke my name. I looked at Reese. The smile was gone from his face, replaced by a serious, mature expression. It's not about taking the wrong path. It's about having the courage to start over. I stared at him, seeing not the playful kid, but a thoughtful, grown man. Reese gently touched the top of my head. You've never lacked courage, have you? I, Lyra, could proudly say that I had never lacked courage. Years ago, as a young woman, I had jumped into that pool to save Reese without a second thought. With Lysander, I had proposed in public without hesitation. How had I regressed as I got older? Suddenly, everything became clear. I looked sharply at Reese. His face was smiling again, the boyish charm back. The sudden shift in his demeanor was jarring. How could one person have such contrasting facets? But Reese didn't give me time to ponder. He ruffled my hair again. I touched my hair, frowning. You messed up my hair. Reese laughed heartily. I looked at him, and against my will I started laughing too. Saying the word divorce today hadn't felt as painful as I expected. I ended up getting quite drunk. In a haze, Reese somehow got me home. When I woke up the next morning, the first thing I saw was a chest. In my sleepy confusion, I thought it was Lysander and burrowed closer, snuggling into him with my eyes closed. A stifled chuckle came from above. My eyes snapped open. Reese was propped on an elbow, looking incredibly smug, giving me a suggestive look. Morning, Ilara. You. What are you doing in my bed? A bad feeling started to form. Reese threw his arm around the pillow, pulling it into a dramatic hug. Ilara, you were clinging to me and wouldn't let go. What could I do? My face instantly flamed crimson. Then another thought struck me. Hey, when did you stop calling me sister? Reese just grinned, enjoying my embarrassment. He didn't answer, getting out of bed. He was surprisingly thoughtful, leaving me to collect myself. When I came out after washing up, the dining table was laden with breakfast dishes. A feast. I had never had breakfast prepared for me like this. Reese handed me a glass of honey water. Drink this first. I sat down, feeling incredibly flustered, a grown woman being taken care of by. Who was he? The chest I'd seen this morning certainly belonged to a man, not a boy. Reese left after breakfast, saying he had things to take care of. I contacted my lawyer, who quickly reached out to Lysander. Shortly after, I received a call from my lawyer saying Lysander wanted to meet and talk. To be honest, there was nothing left to say to him. But to ensure the divorce went smoothly, I sighed and agreed. Lysander looked tired, perhaps from caring for Willow after her fall. I sat across from him in the cafe, adopting a formal tone. Mr. Lysander, do you have any issues with the divorce terms? He rubbed his temples, his voice hoarse. Stop making a scene, Ilara. Willow isn't a threat to you. You are still my wife. I looked at him directly. Lysander, it's not about her being a threat. Set. I don't want this anymore. I didn't want the unrequited effort. The cold life, sharing a man's attention even if only with his past. But Lysander didn't understand. He still thought I was acting out of jealousy. Lysander seemed to finally grasp the depth of my resolve. His eyes darkened, becoming terribly intense. Ilara, don't you regret this? News of our divorce spread like wildfire through our social circles. It was a big deal. Our lives were deeply intertwined and dissolving the marriage would cause significant disruption. Calls and messages flooded in, overwhelming me. I turned off my phone. During this time, Reese also kept a low profile, seemingly busy with his own matters. Then one morning, after a few days of quiet, I heard a commotion at my front gate. I rushed out to see what was happening and nearly died of embarrassment. Reese was climbing over my garden wall just as my parents arrived. They were carrying small suitcases, looking like they'd rushed back. Unexpectedly, I was mortified. But Reese, surprisingly, walked straight towards my parents, greeted them politely, looking completely at ease. I braced myself for my father's anger. But he just nodded, a strange expression on his face, and told me to come inside. It was odd. My father had always been so volatile about Lysander. When had he become so calm, so agreeable? Was that it? I looked blankly at Rhys. He winked at me, his smile bright and innocent. He handed me a bag. Eat this while it's hot. Now that your parents are back, it might not be as easy for me to visit. Call me if you need anything. What was he implying? My ears felt warm. It sounded like we were having a secret affair. I shook my head, dispelling the thought, and went inside. My parents watched me eat breakfast, then asked me to explain everything. My proposal to Lysander years ago had almost caused my father to disown me. Though he eventually relented and supported Lysander significantly, now I was suddenly asking for a divorce. I forced a wry smile. I didn't mention Willow, only saying that the love was gone, and I wanted to leave Lysander. To my astonishment, they accepted it calmly. They told me not to worry, they would handle everything. The expected interrogation, the anger, the disappointment. None of it came. It felt unreal, too smooth. Relief washed over me. I felt utterly drained yet strangely light. Back in my room, I turned my phone back on. One message immediately stood out. Class reunion this weekend. Please attend. I messaged the class representative. Only after confirming Lysander wasn't attending did I agree to go. The hotel the representative booked was large. As I arrived, I saw events happening on other floors, people moving in and out of various function rooms. When I got to the room for our reunion, the server opened the door, and I saw them instantly. Lysander and Willow sitting together at a table. My smile faltered for only a fraction of a second. Then I walked in holding my head high. Lysander didn't even look at me, acting as if I didn't exist. A hush fell over the room for a moment. A friend, seeing my surprise, whispered, "They just arrived. Just before you did." I nodded, my expression composed, and chose a seat. I sat up straight, showing no sign of discomfort or awkwardness. Just the proud, unshakable Lyra I always was. Throughout the dinner, Lysander was exceptionally attentive to Willow, making me feel isolated, conspicuous in my single status. I couldn't help but wonder if Lysander had ever been this openly caring towards me. Maybe sometimes, but it was always a performance, never this genuine, this easy. It felt false, like a reflection on water, easily scattered by a breeze. Snapping myself out of it, I found I wasn't as bothered as I expected. But then, a classmate who'd always disliked me, someone who had also liked Lysander years ago, said, her voice dripping with malice, "Something you snatched isn't truly yours. Of course you have to give it back eventually, don't you?" I sighed, ready to respond, when the door suddenly opened. A familiar figure stood there. Rhys. He was wearing a sharp suit and tie, the maturity it lent him almost entirely eclipsing his usual boyishness. He looked incredibly handsome, poised. "Sorry, my company is having a reception downstairs," he announced, a warm smile directed at me. I let Ilara come up first. "Ilara, aren't you going to introduce me?" The room erupted in murmurs. The girl who had just spoken lowered her head, her face red. My surprise was as great as everyone else's, but when Rhys winked at me, my carefully held composure completely relaxed. It seemed whenever I needed him, he appeared. I realized then what Rhys represented to me: security, peace of mind. I smiled at him, my voice clear. "I forgot to mention to everyone. This is my boyfriend, Rhysine." A glass shattered somewhere nearby. I looked towards Lysander's table. His face was a mask of fury as he glared at Rhys. Willow quickly stammered, "Sorry, I didn't hold it properly." But the glass in front of her was still intact. Rhys sat beside me, leaning in. "Didn't you say to call if you needed something?" he whispered playfully. I gave him a look, explaining this was unexpected. He pouted slightly, then began filling my plate, looking after me with unwavering attention. My classmates watched, green with envy, marveling that after my divorce, I had found such a perfect boyfriend so quickly. Yet I felt a persistent, intense gaze on me throughout the evening. When I looked up, though, I couldn't pinpoint anyone watching. Finally, the reunion ended. Rhys went to get his car. I waited by the entrance. Lysander was there too, alone. Willow was nowhere in sight. Lysander walked up to me, his tension palpable. "My father came to see me," he said quietly. "I'll get the partner position. The condition is, I have no further contact with you." I nodded, offering him a soft, genuine congratulation. Congratulations on achieving his goal, on finally being free of the obligation. To me, Perhaps this was the true reason he had married me, the ultimate benefit exchange. But it didn't matter anymore. I didn't care. Lysander spoke again, his voice barely a whisper. Was this your idea? Do you really want nothing more to do with me? I looked at him. In that quiet question I thought I detected a flicker of anxiety, of vulnerability. Lysander anxious because of me? I didn't know how to respond. A car's headlights flashed in the distance. Reese was approaching. It's over, Lysander, I said softly. Live well. Lysander looked up. I could see his eyes were slightly red-rimmed in the faint light. If you knew I was coming tonight, you wouldn't have come, would you? Even seeing me with Willow. You didn't care. I nodded again, then turned and walked towards Reese's car. From behind me, Lysander's voice called out, raw with something I'd never heard from him before. But I don't want to have nothing to do with you. I'll send Willow away. Will you come back? For a moment I thought I had misheard. But he repeated it, his voice desperate. Will you come back? I stopped, my hand reaching for the car door. But I didn't turn around. I can't go back, Lysander. You know that better than anyone. Sitting in Reese's car, the air was thick with unspoken words. When we reached his family's garage, I finally sighed. Okay. Explain. All of it. Reese tried to play innocent, but I gave him a light slap on the arm. You were all hiding it from me, weren't you? I had suspected it all along. Reese's perfectly timed appearances, my parents' calm acceptance of my divorce, their apparent approval of Reese. Something wasn't adding up. Reese took my hand, lacing his fingers with mine, as if afraid I would run. Okay, don't be angry. I'll tell you everything. It wasn't a coincidence. Reese had been watching over me for years. When he heard I was getting married to Lysander, he left the country for his studies. But while abroad he occasionally visited my parents, posing as a friendly neighbor. I never knew. Until one day, he came to my house and overheard Lysander negotiating with my father in the garden. Lysander was discussing their contract marriage, stating it was merely a business transaction to advance his career, and the time had come to leverage it for a partner position. Reese stood in the garden for a long time after Lysander left. Then he made a decision. I decided to come back and take over the family business. And while I was at it, rescue you from that scoundrel. He looked at me, his eyes serious. My Alara. You have the right to know the truth. You have the right to choose. My breath hitched, a bittersweet pang in my heart. Had I also been carefully treasured by someone just as I had treasured Lysander? Reese leaned forward and kissed my forehead. He hesitated, then added, there's just one more thing. I looked up. Reese closed his eyes like he was bracing for judgment. Willow. She's my senior from university. My family sponsored her tuition. My eyes widened in genuine surprise. Willow was part of Reese's plan too? Reese added quickly, I got my parents' approval for everything. It all clicked into place. The whole elaborate setup. Not a boyish puppy, but a careful, calculating wolf in sheep's clothing. I looked at Reese, a slow smile spreading across my face. His eyes lit up, thinking I wasn't angry. Reese, I said, my voice full of mock outrage. You utter scoundrel. I started walking towards the house, Reese following behind me, looking repentant. My mother saw us and sighed. Unexpectedly, she started defending Reese. He said he just wanted you to see Lysander's true nature. He wouldn't interfere with your choice. Otherwise, your father and I wouldn't have agreed. I went to my room in silence, mulling over my mother's words. Your father and I knew about Reese's feelings years ago. He's a good boy, he hasn't changed. Lysander's ambition is too great. You would have realized eventually that your marriage to him was just an exchange. Love really could be blinding. I sighed, then remembered Lysander's last words to me. He had secured the partner position. Why would he still ask me to come back? A thought flashed in my mind, cold and sharp. My phone rang. An unknown number. I answered, puzzled. Hello? Is this Ms. Lyra? We have a gentleman here at our bar. He's very drunk and seems to be having a reaction. I've already called an ambulance. He seems to have blocked your number, so I'm calling from mine. Could you possibly come down? From the background I heard a slurred, faint voice. Ilara. Come back. My hand shook. The phone dropped onto the bed. It was Lysander. Reese was still waiting outside when I came out. Seeing my face, his eyes widened. What happened? It's Lysander, I said, biting my lip. He's been drinking. He's allergic to alcohol. Don't panic, I'll drive you. Reese didn't hesitate. He moved towards his car. Reese, call an ambulance directly. I grabbed his arm. Reese stopped looking at me, then gently touched my head. I know you, Alara. And I know him. He's doing this to make you feel guilty. Lysander still doesn't understand you. Come on, I'll drive. Reese's calm confidence was strangely reassuring. My mind had been a mess. Lysander had been in my life for so long. Even if I was moving on, I couldn't ignore this. The drive to the hospital was quick. Lysander was in the emergency room. Reese stayed with me, a silent, constant presence. Finally, the doctor emerged. We got him here in time. He's out of danger. I breathed a sigh of relief. The doctor shook his head. Young man, you need to take better care of yourself. I went in to see Lysander. He looked gaunt, lying on the hospital bed, none of his usual confidence or elegance visible. You've become the person you hated, haven't you? I said quietly. A flicker of pain crossed his eyes. He turned his face away. You still care about me, don't you? Otherwise, you wouldn't have come. I missed you so much I couldn't bear it. I thought getting drunk would make it hurt less. I knew Lysander's pride. Asking me to come back had been his lowest point. Hearing him speak like this pleadingly was unnerving. Was the pain of sobriety so unbearable he was willing to risk his life? For the oblivion of drunkenness? I understood that feeling. And I was profoundly grateful that, in my darkest moment, after deciding on divorce, someone had been there to pull me back from the brink. The last cloud of doubt in my heart vanished. I knew my choice now. It's good you're awake, I said, standing up ready to leave. I came to say one last thing. Don't contact me again. You've chosen him, haven't you? Lysander's voice was barely audible. I nodded. Lysander's face crumpled, turning ashen. Reese seemed relieved to see me come out quickly. He came closer. Willow is going abroad for further studies. She wants to see you before she leaves. Will you? I agreed. Reese reached for my hand. I didn't pull away. He grinned like a child. You chose me this time, right? I glared at him. Aren't you supposed to be the clever one? Didn't you figure it all out already? Reese suddenly hugged me tightly, then lifted me in a celebratory spin. Right there in the hospital corridor. Hey you there, the one who's about to be a dad, be careful. A passing doctor shouted at Reese. You can't get that excited. Watch out for the pregnant woman. I flushed crimson, wanting to disappear into the floor. Reese didn't bother explaining. He just smiled, his eyes sparkling. Alara, he whispered. When are you going to make me a dad? I stomped on his foot playfully. Just you wait. When I met Willow, she seemed different, cool and distant. I know what you're thinking, she said, her expression frank. I prioritize my interests. For money, I can betray a childhood friend. There was a hint of bitterness in her eyes, though. But you didn't know. I came back with intentions. Reese's family's support was tempting, but Lysander was equally tempting. It was a gamble. I lost. So I'm leaving. What do you mean? I frowned. Willow gave a wistful smile. You didn't notice? When Lysander was with me, his mind often seemed elsewhere. I knew he was thinking about you. Maybe he didn't even realize it himself. I knew I couldn't make up for the years you two had together. So, I went back to the original plan. Willow left as suddenly as she had appeared. Watching her go, I wondered if, perhaps, even she had felt a flicker of genuine emotion amidst the calculations. Lysander was transferred to an overseas branch after leaving the hospital, Reese told me. He gave up his partner position to become an international lawyer, never returning to the city. 1 year later. In the hotel lounge, Reese was teasing me, trying to steal kisses. He wouldn't leave until I gave in. My wedding dress was elaborate, beautiful, a testament to Reese's sincerity and the importance of this day. Everyone's waiting outside. I pushed against Reese, but he didn't budge. My eyes were misting over. What did it matter that he was younger than me? He had shed his earlier disguise and become a force of nature. The only things that hadn't changed were his tenderness and care for me. Except, in moments like these, he was stubbornly persistent. Reluctantly, he let go of my waist but tightened his grip on my hand, our fingers intertwined. I'll let you go this time, But you owe me later, Sister Alara. I gave him a sarcastic smile. Calling me sister again now, are we? Reese grinned. Just trying to get on Sister Alara's good side. As we circulated, toasting guests, I thought I saw a figure standing far off near the entrance. He looked weary, travel-worn, like a statue carved from dust. Reese squeezed my hand. I snapped back to reality. When I looked again, Lysander was gone. Reese and I raised our glasses together, smiling as we accepted the blessings of our loved ones.